Start first with the bye weeks, actually, first. I believe, I'm almost certain this is the last week of bye weeks. You have the Cleveland Browns, New Orleans Saints, New York Giants, and Pittsburgh Steelers are on their byes. So, starting off first, we have the New York Jets traveling to Houston, Sweat City, to play the Texans. The Jets come in at 5-4. The Texans are 4-5. Big game in the wild card, obviously, as these two teams are right in it. Texans have their sights set on the division, which they are in first place of in that poor AFC South division. Starting out with the injuries, once we can load it up here. All right, for the Jets, Calvin Pryor, their safety, is questionable. Antonio Cromartie, their cornerback, is questionable. Ryan Fitzpatrick, quarterback, probable. Brandon Marshall, wide receiver, probable. Sheldon Richardson, defensive tackle, questionable. For the Texans, Kareem Jackson, their cornerback, is questionable. Jadeveon Clowney, their linebacker, questionable. DeAndre Hopkins, their wide receiver, is questionable. Brian Hoyer, their quarterback, is out. Look for TJ Yates to get the starts. He came in relief on Monday night. And Chris Polk, the running back, is questionable. Now, Houston, their defense has actually been coming along. I expected their defense to play a lot better than they have been in the early part of the season. Now they're starting to look like the defense that I expected from the start of the year. The Jets are going to have their hands full in this game, keeping that front seven, especially if Jadeveon Clowney can go, the front seven of Houston, off of Ryan Fitzpatrick, who is still hurting with that hand. And if you get Ryan Fitzpatrick under pressure, he's likely to make mistakes, so that's what teams are going to look for. Now, with the Texans, you got to look at the injuries, especially with Brian Hoyer being out. Ryan Mallett is in the doghouse. He's not going to get any time in this game, so TJ Yates is going to be the quarterback. I don't even expect Ryan Mallett to be active, to be honest with you. He might have to be, though, if they're just devoid of quarterbacks in that position. If Clowney can't go, again, you got a lot of questionables. Kareem Jackson, the cornerback, along with Clowney and the front seven. DeAndre Hopkins, the impressive wide receiver, all these questionables, and Chris Polk are questionable. Arian Foster is already out. So I have to look at the injuries in this situation, and I have to give it to the Jets. It's going to be a tough win on the road for the Jets, but they have to have it if they want the wild card, if they want to show that they're serious contenders this year. This is a game you got to win. Houston, obviously, I mean, a 4-5, you're below 500, but you're still right at the 500 mark. I mean, a win would put them at 500. So this is still a tough team that has playoff aspirations. They were 9-7 last year, so the Jets have to find a way to win this game on the road, and I think they will get it done. Again, if Antonio Cromartie can't go, though, that could be a difference. Say Antonio Cromartie goes and DeAndre Hopkins doesn't go. Or, excuse me, say Antonio Cromartie does not go, and DeAndre Hopkins does go. Then you are in a position where I could give Houston more of a shot. But the relative is going to be on Hopkins, whether he plays or not, for most of the game. So I'm going to give it to the Jets. Look at the injuries. I'd expect it to be low scoring. I'm liking this one 21-17 Jets. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts. They're traveling to Atlanta to play the Falcons. The Colts are 4-5 and are tied with Houston on top of that division. The Atlanta Falcons have lost 3 out of their last 4. They're at 6-3, and they've got to find a way to get it together. Injuries first for the visiting Colts. Mike Adams, their safety, questionable. DeQuell Jackson, their linebacker, questionable. For the Falcons, Devin Hester is on injury reserve. Leonard Hankerson, their wide receiver, is probable. You look at Indianapolis, as bad as it's been, all the question marks, all the things going wrong, they certainly can turn it around very quickly with a win. They are still on top of that division. They can get things rolling at any time and can run away with this division if they want to, because I expect teams like Houston to start losing some games. But you look at it, they really have to win because a team like a Jacksonville as well as Houston are going to be on their heels regardless. So a loss by Houston, a loss by Indianapolis, and suddenly Jacksonville is right there in this division. So the Colts have to get it together. The Falcons, obviously, they are starting to play more of the 6-10, 7-9-ish range. I would have expected them at the beginning of the year. I think a lot of the wins early in the year helped them, kind of get them rolling, and it's why they got off to a good start. But now it's starting to come back to them. Julio Jones, of course, is having a spectacular year. 80 receptions, over 1,000 yards already, and 6 touchdowns. In comparison, T.Y. Hilton, who's having a good year for the Indianapolis Colts, is their top receiver. He has 43 receptions for 703 yards and 3 touchdowns, which are good numbers. I wouldn't say very good, but they're certainly impressive numbers for a top flight wide receiver in this league. And Julio Jones is really trumping those numbers. So he's been playing very well this season. Devontae Freeman is also playing well. Of course, the running back for the Falcons, the potential offensive rookie of the year, would still have to be the front runner despite the Falcons' struggles at this point in the season. With that being said, I think that the Falcons are going to respond. I think they're at home, and Indianapolis, the confusion will reign again, and they're going to wonder from week to week. This is a team, Indianapolis, I had playing in the AFC Championship game. Thought this might be their year, but obviously things are getting away from them. The turnovers, Andrew Luck, 12 interceptions already this year. He is expected to go. He's been, dealing with injuries that haven't been listed. So we'll see how what happens if they run Frank Gore more and try to limit Andrew Luck's turnovers. But I just don't think that Indianapolis is going to go on the road to get this game. This is a very difficult game to pick. You have an Indianapolis Colts team that can spring up at any time. You have an Atlanta Falcons team that is sputtering. So I'm going to pick the Falcons. I'm going to like this game to be 28-20. And I think the turnovers are going to do the Indianapolis Colts in. All right, next up, the Oakland Raiders are traveling to Detroit to play the Lions. The Raiders are 4-5. The Lions are 2-7. The Lions, of course, off that win against the Green Bay Packers. Oakland coming off a loss. Oakland in the playoff thick, as are all the other teams in the AFC, hovering around the 500 mark. I'm going to start with the injuries for the visiting Raiders. Only one listed. It's Clive Walford, the tight end. He's probable. For the Lions, Josh Wilson, their cornerback, is on injury reserve. Calvin Johnson, their wide receiver, is questionable. And Joyke Bell, their running back, is probable. Oakland, a must-win game to stay in contention for that wild card, especially with Detroit coming off a win that they probably shouldn't have gotten. They're 2-7 this year. You would have to, look at this as a team. If you're Oakland, that you've got to really squash. You can't allow them to get anything rolling in this game. Look for Derek Carr, who's having a very good year, 21 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. If he can lead this team in the playoffs with the numbers he's having, you would have to have him as a dark horse play or MVP candidate. Of course, that is contingent on this team making the playoffs, so we'll have to see how that goes, but just wanted to make that note. Matthew Stafford for the Lions, a lot of turnovers this year, already 12 interceptions to only 15 touchdowns. Latavius Murray running the ball very well this year, well over 4 yards per carry. Well over 4.5 yards per carry, so he's getting the job done. Amari Cooper starting to come along and playing like the offensive rookie of the year I projected him to be this season. Calvin Johnson, of course, is playing well. 54 receptions, 740 yards, only 3 touchdowns, though. So you look for Oakland's secondary. You do have DJ Hayden, you have Charles Woodson, the veteran, but outside of that, they've been relatively shaky this year, and that's cost them a lot of the games. So I am looking for Calvin Johnson have a big day. I also look for Amari Cooper to have a big day because, especially with Josh Wilson in the secondary, and Detroit's defense just not playing well at all this season to begin with. So I think the Oakland Raiders have to have this game. Detroit may be game for this effort, but I think they're going to have a letdown after that win last week, and they might be looking ahead to the Thanksgiving Day game that they're playing. So I'm taking Oakland in this game. I think they're going to get a good amount of points. I'm thinking 31-23 for this game. All right, next, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Philadelphia to play the Eagles. Both teams at 4-5. Of course, Tampa Bay off that win against Dallas. They're playing actually very well, right around the 500 mark. And you have Philadelphia coming in off a loss. So with both teams at 4-5, obviously the division is much more out of reach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the undefeated Carolina Panthers in their division. Philadelphia is only a half game out and can tie the Giants. We're on the bye week this week. The injuries first for the visiting Buccaneers: Vincent Jackson, wide receiver, questionable. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, their tight end, questionable. Jock Smith, their defensive end, questionable. And Major Wright, their safety, is probable. For the Eagles, Nelson Aguilar, wide receiver, probable. Sam Bradford out, the quarterback. Ryan Matthews, the running back, out. Josh Huff, the wide receiver, probable. Now, looking at this game, you have Mark Sanchez coming into the game, replacing the injured Sam Bradford. A lot of people think Mark Sanchez can't play anymore. I am not one of them. I didn't think Mark Sanchez necessarily got a fair shot when he was in New York. I think he was kind of shipped out of there a little fast. I don't think they ever really developed enough help to go with him. I don't think they ever developed enough help to go with Mark Sanchez, and they sort of were winning games despite not bringing him along. So he'll be in there. Of course, his turnovers are an issue. Now, Jameis Winston, 10 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He had 2 interceptions last week. It did not cost him. Had a fumble that was overturned on replay. The fumble itself wasn't overturned. It was a penalty on the Cowboys that allowed him to not turn the ball over there. So he'd been doing better with his turnovers, and certainly now that's going to affect him. If he can't, obviously any quarterback, if they can't limit their turnovers, they're going to have a problem. So he's going to have to continue to lower the turnovers again and get back onto that track that he'd been in the previous weeks prior to that game against Dallas. I look for DeMarco Murray. This would be the game he finally would start to get going. Obviously, you would have to expect Philadelphia is going to want to take the ball out of Mark Sanchez's hands as much as possible and establish DeMarco Murray. No Ryan Matthews, so he's going to carry a big load in this game. This is a tough one to pick. Tampa Bay, heading in the right direction. Philadelphia without Sam Bradford. A lot on the line for Philadelphia. Tampa Bay, in that wild card, any team that's this close to 500, only 9 games into the season, is still going to be technically in the wild card. So a real tough game. If Tampa Bay loses, I think that would be the end of their season. Philadelphia, certainly a loss is not going to kill them. So I think Tampa Bay is going to put up a lot of resistance to the Philadelphia Eagles, but for some reason I like Philly to win this game. I don't think they're going to drop 2 in a row, and I think they're going to be prepared, and they're going to find ways to turn Jameis Winston over. So I think it's going to be in a middle of the run as far as scoring wise, and I like this to be 20-17 late for the Philadelphia Eagles to move to 5-5. All right, next up, the Denver Broncos at 7-2, going to Chicago to play the Bears, who are 4-5. They've quietly come around since a pretty horrific start for the Bears, playing much better. The injury report first for the visiting Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning is doubtful. DeMarcus Ware, the defensive end, is out. Ronnie Hillman, the running back, probable. Emmanuel Sanders, wide receiver, questionable. Owen Daniels, tight end, questionable. For the Chicago Bears, the following 4 are all questionable. Pernell McPhee, the defensive end. Shea McClellan, the linebacker. Alshon Jeffrey, the wide receiver. Matt Forte, the running back. Eddie Royal, the wide receiver, is out. Peyton Manning, I had seen that Brock Osweiler, the backup quarterback for Denver, was getting the start. I saw that yesterday. He's listed as doubtful right now, so it's still a long ways from playing. But I was under the impression it was already settled. It does not appear to be the case, and I guess there's still a sliver of hope that Peyton Manning may play in this game. Would it even be the worst thing if Peyton Manning does not play? They've been winning basically in spite of him. We're wondering if this is the end of Peyton Manning. We've been going over that a lot in the previous videos. We'll have to see. I would expect them to play Brock Osweiler. Now, do you ever bench Peyton Manning if he's healthy to come back? I don't think so. But certainly if Brock Osweiler puts together a good game against the Bears today, questions will certainly arise, especially with the team with that defense that is still right in line to possibly even get home field advantage. It's unlikely, but still possible. Now, for the Bears at 4-5, we just discussed with the Buccaneers, you can't eliminate any team at 4-5 that close to the 500 mark, only 9 games in. Jay Cutler has been limiting the turnovers, which has been very impressive for him. He has 13 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Really got to give Jay Cutler kudos because I'm not the biggest Jay Cutler fan, but he's limited the turnovers. Now, Matt Forte, who is listed as questionable, he's having a productive season. A little bit above 4 yards per carry. Only 2 touchdowns this year. I expect them to work him a lot because of the prolific Denver secondary. I don't think Jay Cutler is going to want to throw the ball, and this could be a game where he picks the turnovers back up. He's going to look for Alshon Jeffrey, Jay Cutler that is. He's become the favorite receiver. Obviously hasn't filled Brandon Marshall's shoes really at all. Only 36 receptions for 515 yards and 2 touchdowns. So Alshon Jeffrey's got to pick his play up. Interesting game here. I'd like to see what Brock Osweiler can do. I'd like to see if Chicago can keep it rolling. Denver certainly has the potential to lose without Peyton Manning playing. Chicago has been playing better. So really a lot of tough games to pick this week. I'm going to give it to the Broncos on the road. I think they run the ball. Even with the injury to Ronnie Hillman, he is probable, so I don't expect any problems there. I think Brock Osweiler is going to show that he belongs in this league. I think they're going to get the job done, and I look for Jay Cutler to turn the ball over with that ball hawking Denver secondary. So I like this score to be Low scoring because I think of the turnovers for Chicago, and I don't think Brock Osweiler is going to put up that many points, being that he's only a backup. So we'll see how that goes. But I'd like it to be 17-14 in favor of the Denver Broncos in a low scoring game. All right, so we're going to take another